I was disappointed, as you can imagine. I thought Monty did a better job than I did. I thought his team was tough. I thought the change he made playing the two bigs was a really good move. I thought, looking at his team, lately they've been shooting a lot more threes and things, and they did a much better job of that, in my humble opinion. I told him that. Our four upperclassmen, I thought, played pretty well. We were 20 for 31. We were 5 for 11 from the three. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for 11 from the free throw line. We had pretty good rebounding. Jeremy had 11 assists. We only had 5 turnovers between them. But our other guys struggled a little bit, and both offensively and defensively, and that was disappointing coming off a pretty good play out in New York. But that's where we are right now. We're still not consistent enough for me, but bounced back a little bit better and out-rebounded them by 11, I guess. And, turnover is 12, but they got a couple of turnovers for touchdowns, which I wasn't very happy about. And I just didn't think we played as good as we can play, so we'll get better.
Hey, Tom, curious to know, prior to Big Ten play, and this non-conference time gives you all these different storylines. I mean, you get MSG, you get the Arkansas tournament game at home, and of course, Monty. What is that like? And secondly, I just want to add another one. Second half, people talk about getting their cardio up so they can run longer. Do you think you need time for these guys to be able to have the mental bandwidth to last longer? So I'll pose both those to you.
Yeah, today's not an easy day for me. I don't like playing my former guys. I don't like playing Tom or Monty or BG or Mike Garland or Dwayne Stevens. I don't like playing any of them, to be very Tom Crane. Over the years, that's not a lot of fun because I know what they're going through as they're trying to build programs. But I also put it to my team. We got back late. We didn't have a very good practice 2 days ago because we couldn't do anything. We had a great practice yesterday, and I thought that's one of the things they're learning how to do. Good practices lead to good games. It's like studying for the test, and you got to take the test. We studied pretty good for the test. I didn't think we did a very good job, and that doesn't take anything away from what they've done. We just missed. We airballed some wide open shots. Airballed them. If you ask me, the guy that should be upset is Fears, not me. He would have had 15, 16 assists tonight if they just hit regular shots. So that's disappointing. And yet, whether you believe this or not, and most people don't, I hardly said a word to one guy about a shot. I was more disappointed that our two guards didn't guard anybody. So I don't put pressure on them about their shooting. That's a myth. I put pressure on them on how hard they play, how hard they run, how much effort they give, how much passion they play with. Those are my stats. And weren't as good tonight in those couple of positions. I thought Cohen started out really well. At times a little bit of defensive lapse, but I thought, his numbers are good. 4 for 6, 2 for 3, 3 for 3, 7. He's just got to get more shots. And it's not always my fault. He's got to get more shots because he's got to get more shots. And but he did some good things. As well as Jackson Kohler's been playing, we did not think he played very well. He didn't get one defensive rebound. Now, I thought they were physical and good in there, but, so my key guys played really well for the most part. A couple of them didn't do what they needed to do, but for the most part, it's those other guys right now that we'll have to get after it tomorrow a little bit.
Tom, Mark had said that, Michigan State should, basically you guys should thank him for recruiting Jeremy so hard, and I'm just wondering, obviously joking, but what you thought of his performance tonight with the second double-double so far this season already?
I agree with Monty. I will thank him. I won't let him take him, but I'll thank him because he did do a good job recruiting him. But Jeremy's getting better, Jeremy's getting better. I mean, like I said, Jeremy's a sophomore in his eligibility, but and even though he's a junior that's been here 3 years, he's a sophomore in his play too because of the time he missed. And I think he's just starting to come into his own. And he's still got to get a little better. Defensively, there were a couple times he got after it, like I think he can. I think we got to get that a little more consistent. So does he. But I felt good that I think he's playing under control. You look at it, 12 shots is probably a little more than normal for him, but 90% of them were good. So I was impressed with Jeremy Fears, and he's rounding into the point guard I thought he could be and would be and should be.
Tom, I wanted to ask you about Cohen. What's the message to him regarding getting more shots while also not being over-aggressive at times?
Yeah, I don't think very often he's over-aggressive. That's my opinion. I like Ko to be able to, we're trying to put him in more ball screens and more things where he can do a little bit more. And I don't think our break's been where it was, and he's really exciting on the break, not just because of the lobs, but he can get it and go. And I didn't think tonight, Jeremy pushed it, but we're just not as sharp on our break right now, and I don't know why that is, so I'll have to look at the film and figure it out. But we need Cohen to get 12 shots a game, if you ask me, and we need him to get to the free throw line. But what we really need is he went to that free throw line and he made his free throws, made a couple threes, and at times was really good defensively. I think he's got to get more consistent on that.
Coach, going back to Jeremy for a second, when the other guards are struggling and shooting 4 for 18 from the field, and he has that offensive switch that he flips on, is that the maturity that you're seeing him start to grow into, especially on the offensive end when other players might be struggling throughout the evening?
Yeah, I think we can put him in some positions, but our bigs did do a good job kicking it out to him. He had some wide open threes. The best shot he had was the one in the far right corner, and I asked him if there's different kind of. I think he tried to shoot that when it goes in from the bottom. Saudi said that looked like a dart. But other than that, I thought he shot the ball really well. Even a couple shots he missed, but he didn't really take over the game. He just played within himself, which to me was really good. So I don't know. I don't think he's a guy that can just take it over, shoot it that way. But he's gotten to be a really good shooter on kickouts. The next phase for him will be now off the dribble. He's getting the mid range. He's getting a lot better off the dribble. And when the whole thing gets better, he's just going to keep rising.
And Tom, I was asking, I'm wondering about Jesse. How do you think he handled redshirting last year? Kind of going through that process of knowing you're not going to be able to play during the season. He made a couple timely threes against Kentucky. Made a couple blocks tonight. How has he developed as a player and a guy you can kind of entrust a bit more?
We love Jesse. He's the one guy that communicates. He talks. He really does have a nice-looking shot. I thought tonight he got punked a little bit too, which means he's still got to get stronger. We were letting the ball in the post too easy. That was the only thing. I mean, he had 6 rebounds. He had a couple blocks. He had that one move should have been that was a great play with him and Cam. It should have been a dunk, and he kind of went in there a little soft. His dad won't be happy with him on that. But we think that Jesse has made incredible progress from where he was to where he is in 1 year. And he works so hard at it that I see that just getting better and better.
Coach, I know you've had a bunch of assistants that have gone on to become head coaches, but there aren't as many players that you were around to coach that are now head coaches. Yeah. Tell us about your relationship with Monty and what makes that one special.
It was, I recruited Monty. I mean, he was one of the first big classes. Monty, Pep, Matt Steginga, and that probably got me this job, to be very honest with you. And Monty was the Pied Piper of that recruiting class. He was the one that rallied everybody else. He was very well coached by a guy named Ernie Price, who I think was a great coach. And And so, you know, it is very difficult, you know, but what was rewarding tonight, I was sitting on my bench before the game, and of course Smitty was the first player I ever recruited as an assistant. He's doing the TV. And then I see Kenny Redfield come in, and Tonio and Deuce, Dwan Wiley, and they're all kind of hugging and kissing, and you know, Monty's there, and I said, how lucky am I that I have a situation that I think most people die for, and so it's pretty neat to get to coach against your former player, former assistant. You know, now I got a couple of them. You know, Tum Tum and him were former players, former assistants. Dwayne Stevens, former player, former assistant. But it's not fun, but it's pretty cool when you think about it. And so Monty, you know, he was responsible for a lot of things here. He helped us recruit a lot of good players, and he'll get that thing going. You know, I really believe that. I hope so. Not an easy job, but I think you know, Doug Wojcik scouted this game, and the first thing he said was, "I like the parts. They're just not there yet." And I think that's true. And I think I talked to Monty this morning, and he said he was going to try to get his guys. He felt they were taking bad shots and this and that. I just thought he did a really good job tonight. You know, the final score ended up what it was, but it wasn't really indicative of the whole game.
Coach, another game where Coop started out with 2 early fouls, but then responded really well, only one after that, finished with 12 points, and was really steady at the 5. Just what were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I thought Coop, in the locker room, too, he was more upset than I was. You know, he told the guys something that I embarrassed to say to you, but I was thinking about it, you know. He had never been 3-0 here in his career. You know, we just take it for granted. And now what are we, 5-0, 4-0, whatever we are. But, you know, he brought that up to the team after the game, and, you know, and that there's more we got to do and more he's got to do. He can't get in foul trouble. He's just one of the smartest kids I got on the team. And but him and Jeremy are lethal on that lob stuff. And Coop's getting better at the free throw line again after a rough start there. That one game, he's shot probably 90% since that one game when he couldn't make one. And he's valuable. He's valuable because what he does for Jesse and Cam, you know, and Jesse and Cam, you know, come off a big game. I didn't think anybody was as sharp tonight except Jeremy and Cohen a little bit.